Let's see. Let's see. Who said it was late? What's going on? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Make sure this is going live. Should be good now. All right, so I took the volume down. We're good to go. So let's get some people in here, and then we'll start. Brandon, I think your mic is queued.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I just wasn't sure because usually it switches between like photos, like of the screen, whoever's talking. It just was staying on yours, so I figured it was queued. But it's fine the way it is. I can leave it on mine. It's not a big deal. All right, guys. So we have 30 people here. All right. So in this one, we're going to be sitting down with one of my Patreons, Brandon here. He's new to the hobby. And we're going to talk about macroalgae. We're going to talk about filtration. We're going to talk about just general algae issues. So we're going to kind of go through a bunch of stuff here, and we'll move forward onto questions that you guys specifically had. But yeah, so we're going to go get started. So Brandon, you've started the hobby when?
Started doing research. I want to say about 2 months ago, and recently picked up a tank about 3 weeks ago, and just kind of been piecing together stuff little by little.
All right. So, and you said you were running into some algae issues now?
No, I haven't. No algae issues yet. I don't even have anything up and running yet.
Okay. So basically, we're going to go through, and you can just go ahead and ask your questions on whatever specific topic you want. But we're going to spend like the next 10 minutes answering all your questions, and then we're going to move over to the live chat to kind of pick up on some of the stuff while people are still coming in, because it usually takes 10 minutes or so for people to start really coming into the chat, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, for sure.
We'll spend like the next 10 minutes answering all your questions, and then we're going to move over to the live chat, kind of pick up on some of the stuff. I think we have. It usually takes 10 minutes or so for people to start really coming in. Green man, your mic is cute.
I guess I picked up this tank not knowing really anything and did some research, and it's got, I guess, what's called a coast-to-coast overflow box. What are your thoughts on something like that?
I haven't seen it yet. Where is it located? Is it built in like towards the bottom of the tank, or is it on the back?
It'd be on the back, and he's got it going. The gentleman who I bought it from custom built it with some glass, so it's going the length of the tank, and it's pretty much the whole length of the tank is the overflow box.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yes, I've seen that before. How many bulkheads does it have actually drilled?
It has 2 bulkheads that go down to the sump, and then one emergency one that's set about an inch higher than the rest of them.
Okay. All right. And basically it just runs the PVC pipe up, so you can, if it does go up that high, it would just go automatically to the emergency. Or
yes.
Okay. No, that seems like a good idea. I mean, I've never had one personal like that. I think the longest one I've ever had was like 24 inches was the longest overflow box. And I find it's cool because it kind of adds a little bit to the back of the tank. But when it comes to things getting stuck in there, does it actually have like an acrylic top on it to keep like your fish out of it, or an eel or anything?
No, that's the one thing I was kind of worried about. It doesn't even have like, I guess some of the overflow boxes have those, I don't know what they call them, the little cutouts so the water can flow through. It just got a straight piece of glass right there. So I was kind of worried about that, about something falling in there. But I talked to a couple of people, and they said I can, if you keep fish small, they'll just get sucked down into your sump, and then you can deal with them then. Or
yeah, it kind of works out like that. The only issue is if, like in my situation on my particular frag tank, I have the skimmer before anything else, and sometimes little fish don't make it through that section, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
So that might be something. Yeah.
I was thinking about putting like some egg crate over the top of it, but then somebody brought up, well, what happens if you have a fish that jumps on top of that egg crate? And then
now, does this overflow have the teeth in it? Like you see the one in my picture here, the overflow I have on the frag tank. Does it have those kind of teeth where water flows through?
No, actually no teeth at all.
It just goes over the top. Okay.
top of the glass. And I posted something on Reddit, and a couple of people came back and said you should have the teeth. A couple of people said actually don't have the teeth because it helps skim the water off the top surface a lot better without the teeth. But I guess it's
true.
a give and take thing.
Yeah, I mean, skimming the water is fine. I mean, that's a good thing. But I mean, if you have surface agitation, there's really nothing to skim at that point. I mean, that overflow box sounds fine, but you have to take into consideration the things you just said regarding the, not having the teeth, the fish going down the drain. Now, imagine this. Imagine you had I guess a tang that was big enough to get caught in the bulkhead. Basically, it's too big to go down the drain, but it gets caught in the bulkhead. Now, I'm not saying this is worst case scenario. I mean, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but say you have 3 tangs, okay, and 2 of them gets go over the rim for whatever reason because it happens, and say both of them get stuck, on the bulkheads. I mean, because of the sheer amount of flow going through the box. I mean, I've seen fish get sucked over the edge of those, but they weren't larger fish. So maybe I'm just thinking about something that might not ever happen. But I guess my idea is, do you have a backup plan to prevent something from getting over that tank, over that rim of glass?
I was thinking, if anything, maybe putting some egg crate, I guess you could say it's vertical in between the pumps, and
you could put it at an angle. Like,
oh, that's true.
You could put it at, you can basically attach it to the rim of the tank and have it at an angle going into the box. You see, you kind of picture what I'm talking about. And basically the water can still flow over the edge and go through the egg crate, but it will stop anything from big that would clog the drain from going over.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you can visually, we can talk about this offline at some point, but yeah, I mean, I've never personally had an overflow without teeth, and I've always had an overflow box with a cover on it because Reggie, I don't know if you're familiar with the snowflake eel, but he's gone down the overflow several times when he was, I wouldn't say a baby, but he was much smaller. He won't fit now, but it just got to the point where it was absolutely ridiculous. So I had to find a way, and I told myself I'd never buy another overflow box that didn't have a top on it. So it's just kind of been since it. What's up, Bryce? You got your mic? I don't know who was in here before, but their mic was queued. Do you guys know who was in here before? I didn't get the name before they left.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
It had to have been a Patreon because they're the only ones. You guys are the only ones that have the links at the moment. But Brian, is there any other question you have at the top of your head? I mean, you just started, so just ask me anything.
I guess another thing is I picked up the 2. What are those? The Hydra 52 lights. And they're not the HDs. My tank is 6 foot long, 22 inches deep,
okay,
by 18 inches wide. Would 2 of those be enough, do you think, to power it?
You might be getting some shading. You might be getting some shading in that. The best thing you can do is go ahead. I mean, it's hard to tell because your system's not up yet, but put the lights over it. If you're getting like big gaps of shading, where you're really going to see shading is where the I'm guessing you have some kind of bracing between a 6 foot tank between, in the middle. I'm guessing you have that.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of shading there, but if it's like shade all the way to the bottom of the tank, then you definitely don't have enough light. What's up, man? I didn't see who came in. Joseph, what's going on, dude?
Yeah, what's up?
What's happening?
Not much. We're Brandon here. We're just kind of talking about some new stuff. He's just started the hobby, and we're just kind of chit chatting while people got in here. We really want to talk about nuisance algae and issues that people are having. So that's kind of what I want to focus on this one. And if you guys have questions regarding that, we could talk about it. If not, we can always move on to other questions.
Yeah, that's fine. Perfect. Because I just started about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and that's what I'm having trouble with right now.
Okay. Oh, here's the other person that came in. I didn't see who that was. Green. What's up, man? Or woman? Couldn't tell. All right, Bryce. Bryce. Let's go ahead and while people are coming in, let's go ahead and start talking about what you got going on.
Just film algae and diatoms.
Okay.
It's
how old is the tank again?
I've had it about 2 months, but I got it secondhand from a guy who was getting out of the hobby. Already running. Saved his water, saved his media.
Okay.
Rinsed the media off in salt water, started new. He hadn't been taking care of it, so I got the nitrates and everything in check.
Oh, okay.
Where all that's good now. So, and I used new sand though. I got rid of his sand, went with new sand. So I figured that's the problem with the diatoms, but I'm still having it, a month and a half, 2 months later. And now I'm getting the film algae. So I've been cutting back on the feeding.
Okay. A couple of questions from the previous owner. How old was the tank before you got it from him?
2-3 years.
Okay. And when you say he didn't take care of it, what do you mean by that? Like, what was the tank's condition when you actually picked it up?
When I got it, I mean, it was running, but he had a, it's an older style sump from what I've seen. It's got 2 trickle towers, I guess you'd call them, where you would put bio balls or something. Then it goes into the refugium. It's a 29-gallon acrylic where it's got the zigzag flow underneath.
Yeah.
And the refugium chamber over top. You can adjust the baffle to increase your water flow through and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He had the first 2 chambers just full of pieces of coral and rock, and then he had sand 4 or 5 inches deep through the bottom of all of it, including the pump chamber. So the pump was constantly spitting sand. So I nixed his sump and built a 20-gallon long, 75-gallon tank, and started over with that.
Okay, so you're using, so you built a 20-gallon sump and it's a 75-gallon tank?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, my concern is it depends on how long this guy didn't take care of it. Now, are you having any other algae issues besides the ones that you mentioned?
Nope.
Okay. What kind of water changes are you doing every week or bi-weekly, and how much?
About 10 gallons a week.
A week? Okay. I would go ahead and increase that until you can get the nutrients down. I would go up to about 40% weekly if you can, if that fits your budget. If it doesn't, then don't go out of your way to do it. It just take longer to get the nutrients out. But I would do at least for the next 3 weeks, get some big water changes in there, replace some of those elements and get that junk out. Use a turkey baster on the rock to kind of free up any kind of algae. You can scrape it off. Stay away from any chemicals at this point. There's some there's some things you can do to kind of cheat around, doing the maintenance that will kill algae, but let's just avoid that right now. It's a pretty good lesson because you got a tank that's kind of, not where it should be. So this is a good learning curve for you.
Right. And that's what I did the first week and a half I had it. I did 3 30-gallon water changes because the nitrates were above 160 parts per million with fish living in it.
That's crazy.
And so I got it down and they're all alive, no problems.
Feeding wise, my suggestion, cut it back to every other day and only feed, stay away from nori right now because it's high in phosphates, and pellet foods, if you can avoid it, stay away from it. I would use mysis shrimp, thaw the block in some water, and then drain the mysis shrimp through a net and then feed them that, and only feed what they'll eat in then like a couple minutes, and do that every other day. Okay. That will cut the nutrients down up, big time. And then I would start using GFO if you're not. That's good. And then, don't overdose your tank. I would do about half the recommended dose for your tank just so you don't shock the system. Is there any living coral in there right now?
I just put a xenia in last week.
Okay,
that's it.
So you won't kill that with the GFO, but if you had like some kind of SPS, if you could possibly shock the tank. So start using some GFO to help bring some of those phosphates down. And then your water changes will be your main source of removing nitrates for right now. And just increase your water changes to 40% for the next 3 weeks, and then go back to your 10% weekly or 20% bi-weekly. And And I guess we'll check back in, in a month. And let me know.
And I do have ChemiPure Blue running, and I have a Cato reactor running.
Oh, you have okay. So the Cato is going to take a good chunk of that out for you. Cool. Yep. So you're already ahead of the game, man. You just kind of got to wait out this neglect from the previous owner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you sound like you're doing the right things, but just remove the algae you can, scrape it off, and just keep up with the maintenance.
Right.
Billy Pipes just came in. All right. Hey, Green, I don't know if you can hear me, man. I know that your mic came on earlier, and then we missed you. So sorry about that.
I can hear you.
You're good? Okay, cool. Joseph, I want to move on to you, man. You got anything going on that you want to talk about?
Not really when it comes to nuisance algae, unless you count an algae scrubber as part of that.
Okay. No, that's fine. What do you got going on? Because we can move topics a little bit. We can bounce around. It's not a big deal.
Well, I made an algae scrubber, waterfall style, DIY, of course, and
PVC?
I have LEDs on each side. It's gonna have what four reds and then 2 blues on each side. The blues in the middle, and I've had that for I don't know, maybe going on 2 months now. And all it's growing is diatoms or kind of like a black kind of flaky algae.
Okay.
And I have to scrub it off with a scrubby. Yeah, I can't really scrape it off like how it's supposed to be. So I just did the lights at first. I was running them at 18 hours a day. And then I read something online, I think it's algaescrubber.net, where those guys are in there. And they said since it's LEDs, to run it for 9 hours. I also was running it on really low intensity because I got the dimmable driver. So I switched that up to recently. I turned that to almost full power, maybe 4/5 or so. And it's still not working for me. I'm still not getting that good air algae. As far as in the tank's pretty new. It's only like maybe 3-4 months old, maybe not 4. So I get some diatoms in there on the rocks, but snails usually just eat those within a day, so it doesn't really bother me.
It sounds like either on the mesh, did you end up scraping up the mesh to kind of give the algae something to hold on to?
Oh yeah, I scraped it up real good.
Good.
I took one of the drill bits you would use to drill a hole, right, for a bulkhead, and just use that on there. So
okay, yeah, I think that's what I did in my video too, if I remember. Yeah, I mean, basically, it sounds like your tank is just doesn't have enough to grow. That's kind of what I'm getting from it. But how often are you cleaning the mesh right now? If you were to say like every week or so?
Not every week.
Okay.
Whenever I don't know. I check it as much as I can, but
check. I know you can't really tell me how much flow is going through that, but slow the flow down a little bit, because that way, because if there's too much flow, the algae won't be able to grab on, and then start to grow. It's it's kind of like trying to walk up a waterfall. You're just going to get pushed off from the way, from the coming down. So I would just lower the flow a little bit. It's good about the LEDs. 9 hours is fine. And then I would increase the intensity of the LEDs, because if you're getting diatom blooms in your tank, it means you're not getting enough, I guess, light focused on the algae scrubber. So I think that's what I would do for right now, and just give it some time. But your tank might be too new to really benefit from that system.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty lucky right now too, because I just got a cheap LED light on top right now. So it's not actually, I have the Sinai, and when I put it under the light to check if there's any par, there's no par.
No par. That's funny. Like none at all, right? That's crazy.
None at all.
What light is it?
It's a Coral Life, right? One of those lights.
Yeah. That's great. Is it just have like the 2 LED strips, like the random diodes going up it, like a skinny one?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's got some, I guess, cool features.
It looks cool, yeah. It changes colors and stuff, but it doesn't, you couldn't grow.
It doesn't
grow Xeni on that. Green, you still there, buddy? I know he changed his picture.
Yeah,
so what's going on? What's going on, man? I'm having a hard time hearing you, a little scratchy, but we're kind of moving down the list here. What do you got going on today?
Is my mic working?
Yeah, it's working. It's a little scratchy, but I can hear you if I can turn it up a little bit, but we're good.
Travis, just check out the chats when you get a chance.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I don't have the chat up. Billy, can I make you... I got to get over to manage moderators. Billy, I'm going to switch you up, bro. Billy Pipes. We got some trolls going on.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we'll have them.
It is the internet.
Yeah. It's cool. Yeah, I'm not watching chat right now, and it's nothing to you guys, but I just, once we get through some questions, I'll move on to chat. Bill, are you able to kick?
I don't know. I'm on my phone. I don't think I can. Scott is in front of his computer.
I think I got it. All right, I'm going to remove, and I'm going to block. And we're going to go ahead and report him for being a fucktard real quick. Sorry about that. Excuse me while I write fucktard in here. Hey, man, trolls are trolls, but if you're going to be a dick, I'm just going to report you for being a dick. All right, there we go. Have a good day. Hopefully you get banned, you shitbag.
This is Sparta.
Fucking idiot. Yeah, guys, feel free to interrupt me. I'm going to keep the chat up now and take care of any of that stuff. So all his messages should be blocked. And yeah, all right, moving on, man. Yeah, Green. So we're going to go ahead and we're kind of talking about algae right now, but if you don't have questions regarding that, we can move on to something else. So what do you got going on?
No, my problem is here lately. I've been running. My tank's been up and running for about 6 to 8 months. I've got all my levels low. I just discovered tonight that my DKH is drastically low. Mm-hmm. I've been running through a bout with fish. My deal is in the very beginning, I didn't do the quarantine thing. I just played Russian roulette, threw them in the tank, and I've got my first 8 fish that made it. And they seem to, they're still with me. But ever since I started seeing everybody doing the quarantine thing and started doing that, I'd get the new fish in and I'd start the quarantine process. And mm-hmm. Once I get them out of the quarantine process and get them into the main tank, they'd all last about 2 or 3 weeks. And then next thing you know, they come down with something and they die.
Now, when you say come down with something, what is that something?
Well, now,
is it white spots? Is it ick?
Yeah, some of them, yes.
Okay.
I have a coal tang who didn't appear to have ick on him, but he had like splotches all over him.
Okay.
And I also understand that, or I've come to the conclusion that when it comes to fish, you have very limited time to diagnose them and treat them because things happen rather quickly. But I wasn't too familiar with the whole quarantine thing. I was using fresh salt water. I didn't realize you had to have the sponge thing. And I don't know if maybe some of the fish were in the quarantine system exposed to ammonia spikes or whatever. And then maybe once they got into the main tank after a week or two, and I don't know, they'd come up with something. And the next thing you know, they would go. Okay. So that's my battle I've been dealing with here lately, is just being able to keep any new fish alive and happy.
Okay, well, I'm gonna tell you right now, this is a question that I get all the time, man. Basically, when you had your fish originally, even though they looked like they didn't have ick, it could have been in the gills. It's something that could be dormant for a while. You have ick in your system. Okay, so now you need to address that. Oh, here we go again. Hey, Scott, I'm going to make you a moderator, and you just start kicking people, whoever you feel like. All right, man? All right, Scott, go ahead and do your business. I got to answer this shit without dealing with trolls. So, Scott, you boot whoever you got, man. I don't give a shit who it is. Anyways, yes, you have ick in your system. So, basically, you got to go ahead and you got to go fallow in your tank. And I'm not sure if you know what that means. So basically, you got to remove all your fish, put them in quarantine, and let the tank run for up to 10 weeks without any fish. Now, I like to go a little bit longer just because, sometimes the parasite can be dormant for a while and there's other strains of ick. So I tend to go upwards of 13 weeks is kind of where I like to stay at when it comes to the fallow. And at that point, I mean, of course, you're going to be quarantining your fish and either doing hyposalinity or copper to treat them for ick while you're taking care of your tank at the same time. And yeah, you just got to wait it out, man. Unfortunately, the parasite is in the rock, it's in the sand, and whenever you get a new fish, it's like, oh, it's feeding time. And even though the fish in there right now that are alive seem healthy, it's just because their immune system is kind of outcompeting the ick. But say you didn't add any more fish and you went like 6 months or a year and you're like, oh, everything's fine. Well, say your power went out for a day and the temperature dropped all of a sudden and your fish got stressed and then all of a sudden they all have ick. So that's kind of their weakened immune system at the time would bring the ick back out. So I would say the fallow is the right way to go, and it's going to suck. I mean, there's plenty of people in the chat here that I can recognize some names that I've had the same conversation with. So yeah, I know that's kind of not really what you want to hear.
Let me ask you one more question. I saw your video about your quarantine system that you built down there at your new place.
Mm-hmm.
They all seem to be what, 20 longs?
Yeah, they're all 20 longs. Yep.
So what is your, now obviously when you quarantine them, you want to use tank water, and obviously the best bet would be copper. But my question to you is, how many fish do you normally keep in one tank?
Well, if I have a choice, I like to keep one fish in one tank. Unfortunately, I don't have that situation right now. I actually have my sailfin tang, my powder brown tang, and I'm trying to remember what the other one is, another tang in one quarantine tank. And they're not happy. I know they're not, but I don't have a choice right now. They have to be in there. And I still haven't made this damn video yet about why all my fish are in quarantine. But basically, I try to stick to 2 max if it's possible, if there's not an emergency. I like to keep 2 in there with 1 sponge filter and 1 heater. And then basically I do a water change every 2 weeks when they're not being medicated. I don't do water changes during the copper medication phase, which is 14 days. So during that 14 days, I tend to feed less. Not enough to like starve them, but obviously you're not doing a water change, so you're not gonna replace the nutrients there or the ammonia. So you don't necessarily have to use tank water, but since you kind of are planning this out now, you don't have to be in a rush. You don't have to go and throw all your fish in quarantine tomorrow. What I would do is go ahead and buy some sponge filters and cycle them in your tank for the next week or so, or 2 weeks, kind of build up some kind of beneficial bacteria on them. It also wouldn't hurt to get some beneficial bacteria like the instant colonies or whatever. Sorry about that. And you can go ahead and once you kind of set up your quarantine tanks, you can transfer those sponge filters over to the quarantine tanks and then add your fish. But just understand that once you put copper in that quarantine tank, nothing that ever touches that tank, including the water change hose, the net, or the sponge filters, can ever touch your main display again. So just keep that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got them all in a 60-gallon tank right now, and I was toying with the idea of building a 200-gallon tank. It's funny how when you get in this hobby, it doesn't take long to outgrow a small tank.
Yeah, that's yeah. A lot of people are like, "Hey, can I start with a 30-gallon?" I'm like, "Well, you'll be done with that in 3 months."
Yeah, that was about our case with our 60-gallon. I've got so many corals stuffed in it. It was time to look at going bigger. But yeah, I was going to put everybody in quarantine before putting into the main tank. If I went with the new tank system, that is. But yeah, I just couldn't get over this whole damn quarantine and keeping everybody. A lot of the fish I didn't even medicate. I just put them in a quarantine tank and just watched them, and they appeared fine. And now I'm at the conclusion where it's probably best just to go ahead and preventative breed them.
Yeah, I do prevent. Like, I've been in your situation. This has happened to me already. I mean, you have the fish in there for 4 weeks and it looks fine, but it took 5 weeks for ick to show up for whatever reason. Maybe it wasn't hot enough, or the temperature wasn't high enough to kind of speed up the process in the its life cycle. Maybe it just wasn't ready. Wasn't showing in time. Regardless, I always do preventative treatment. I have moved into copper more, but my favorite used to be hyposalinity. I just I feel more comfortable with hypo.
Right.
So yeah, sorry, my throat's a little scratchy. I've been sick for the last couple of days, hence no videos. But I definitely want to get on here for this. Now, anybody else who's in chat right now have any questions in the video chat? If you guys have anything else, it doesn't matter the topic, whatever you guys got going on.
Yeah, I got a question. Let's say I pick up some dry rock, I cycle it in another tank for a couple of months, and then I want to aquascape with it. How long after I pull it out of that first tank do I have to put it in? Is there a time limit to where I put it in the actual tank?
What, before the beneficial bacteria dies?
Yes.
Well, I've had this question a couple times actually. Basically, the purpose of curing your rock is to build up the beneficial bacteria that will process anything dead on the rock. So it'll basically break down all the food and kind of like dead, corals or whatever else is on there, making it so it's cleaner to be used in the tank. Now, the beneficial bacteria is going to go deep inside the rock. That's where you have that nitrifying bacteria that will break down kind of nitrates and let it bubble out as CO2 gas. That's what happens deep into the rock. Now the bacteria on the outside of the rock will die in probably a few minutes because it's exposed to air, but there's going to be plenty of beneficial bacteria still alive deep inside the rock, where it might not be completely submerged, but the bacteria is still going to be there. Now, I wouldn't leave it out for multiple days, but you can get away with an afternoon. It won't be an issue.
Okay.
That's, my tank for this, when I do the aquascaping for the 300, it's probably going to be, okay, well, to give you an idea, I just did the aquascaping for the 30 gallon, which you guys will see here soon. And that's only 3 rocks that I put in there. And that took me about 45 minutes. So you can just imagine how long it's going to take to do the 300 gallons. So,
yeah, but
go ahead.
In reference to the, sorry to chime in here, but in reference to his curing the rock and everything, of course, it's always easier to aquascape a dry rock with the glue and all that. But I mean, if you're done aquascaping and you throw it in your tank and you cycle it in your tank, aren't you essentially doing the same thing as if you were to put it in a 55-gallon trash can and do it over there?
In a way, you are, but the difference is that in a 55-gallon trash can, you can cover it completely so no light gets in there, which prevents any type of algae ever being able to grow because of the excess nutrients. On top of that, you have a smaller amount of water. So basically, I have a 55-gallon drum with 50 pounds of water. And when I do a water change, like 100% water change on that, it only comes out to about maybe 35 gallons. So I can go ahead and remove a lot more nutrients with 100% water changes, as opposed to putting that 55 pounds of rock in a 100-gallon tank and expect to do 50% water changes, only removing half the nutrients. You see what I'm saying on that? It's just a lot easier and cheaper to do it in a separate container.
What if you were going to go with, let's say, not live rock, but let's say like reef saver rock? You know what I'm saying? Would you still need to do that process that the other guy was talking about, or could you get away with just your normal cycle in the tank?
Now, you could put it in the tank and just go ahead and because it is generally clean. Reef saver rock is known to be pretty clean without any kind of die off. The issue is that when it's closed, when it's closed up in a container like a 55-gallon, it allows that bacteria to grow on the surface. And basically, when you cure rock, bacteria, you can't see it obviously, but basically covers all the rock, giving a little layer, microscopic layer that protects the rock from any kind of algae ever seeding into it. Now, if you put this rock into a main display, and even if you don't have light over it and you just have ambient light, it still gives an opportunity for some kind of algae to get onto the rock before the beneficial bacteria does. And it could be an issue down the road. But with Reef Saver Dry Rock, it's not really dirty. Give it a rinse, soak it for a little bit, and then you should be fine. You should be fine on that.
You mind if I ask one more question?
Yeah, man, go ahead. We got time.
I ran my tank for 3 days with some vinegar in it, just to help break down all the saltcrete and some of the coralline algae in there. Mm-hmm. Should I flush my tank again? Or
you can. It's you're trying to get all that stuff out, like you scraping the razor blade, I'm guessing.
Yeah, razor blade. I'm just wondering and I pulled out all the water. It's been drying for a day. Mm-hmm. Is the vinegar going to leave a residue in there or anything like that?
Vinegar is actually not horrible for a tank. That's why a lot of people use it around their equipment, because it's basically harmless. In small doses. If you pour an entire gallon in your tank, it'd probably not be a good idea. But but it doesn't hurt to rinse it out a little bit. If it's just residue, it's going to dry and precipitate out. Basically, it's going to go away on its own. But it doesn't hurt. It's not a big deal.
Okay, gotcha. And just a little shout out, man. Me and my daughter, we love sitting and watching your videos, man.
Oh, that's cool. Hey, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the support on Patreon too. You guys, all the support between all the subscribers over the last, we'll be going on 2 years in November. You guys are the reason why I even exist, or even why that 300-gallon build is even going on or even exist, period. With all the support with the coral sales and, donations, all that stuff. So it's been pretty good. It's a blessing for sure.
Hey, that picture of that sump you got, the one from Geo, I guess it is, that's what you use on your 300, right?
Yeah, that's going to be that's the sump portion, and then if you saw the other picture, it's the ATO container is 30 gallons of RODI water. But go ahead.
What's the total volume size of that sump? Or is it going to be big enough for that 300 gallons?
Yeah, it's actually 60. So I have 96 inches to play with in the sump area because the tank is basically 96 inches long,
Right.
and then I have 20 inches worth of space width-wise. So that sump is actually 60 inches long by 20 inches wide by 15 inches tall. So that's just the sump portion, and then excuse me again, sorry, I'm trying to drink here and not alcohol but drink water and trying to talk at the same time. But basically the auto top off container is about 23 inches by the same height and the same depth, and then I got like 13 inches left for the calcium reactor. So it's literally between all three of those are going to take up every square inch underneath the tank stand. And yeah, the sump will be perfectly fine for the 300.
Yeah, because on this 200-gallon build I'm looking at doing, it's a real odd size. It's like 48 inches long by 32 inches deep, and it's hard to find a sump.
You could run two.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
You could run two and then do like 2-inch bulkheads to connect them together if you really wanted to. I've seen people do that. I've seen people daisy chain 40 breeder tanks before. I mean, it's interesting to see, but I mean, it works as long as you don't, not make enough bulkhead holes and you run too much water. So, somebody said you have 90. Man, these people are crazy in chat. Jeez. Anyways, yeah. So if you guys don't have any more questions, I guess we'll move over to the live chat here. And if you guys could send me suggestions of what you guys want to talk about next week for the Patreon stuff, that would be awesome. And then we can I come here with a general topic, but I want to be able to get to the questions that you have specifically and kind of get those taken care of. But yeah, do you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we move on to the other?
I just came back from Reefapalooza on Sunday. That was badass.
Yeah, I can't wait. Billy Pipes and I will be at the one in New York next year, so that's going to be really awesome. I'm excited about that.
I saw Jake Adams gave a little, his little talk and stuff. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I didn't see where was it located this year. I didn't see it.
In Anaheim, California.
California. I try to avoid California as much as possible.
Hey man, I ended up winning a 50-pound or a 5-gallon drum of reef crystals and a bunch of food and stuff. It's pretty cool.
That's cool, yeah. Speaking of reef crystals, have you had any issues with the magnesium level at all?
Like I said, my tank, I don't have anything.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, just keep an eye on it. Basically, I would go ahead and make your first batch after you mix the salt and all that stuff, and then make your first batch of salt water and test calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. I just do this for reef crystals because I ran into an issue with 2 boxes in a 4-month period or so where I had 2,000 parts per million of magnesium. So because obviously a fluke in the manufacturing at some point, but
it was a vein.
Yeah, it did something, and it wiped out my entire cleanup crew, basically. So,
shit,
nail wise, because once you get over, I think 1,700 parts per million, don't quote me on that. Your snails become lethargic, and they can't stick to the glass, they can't clean, and they basically starve to death. So, that's a good sign that your magnesium's too high. But all right, so let's move over. You guys can definitely stay in video here if any questions pop up. We're going to do this. We're going to do a 20-minute live chat Q&A. Whatever questions you have, nothing dirty. And then we're going to be done at 10 p.m. sharp. So, yeah, I'll give a second for this to kind of get through the feed, and we'll get started. Would a coal tang be okay in a 55-gallon? Sure, that's fine. I wouldn't add like 10 of them, but yeah, 1 coal tang would be perfectly fine in a 55-gallon. Let's see. Have I ever raised magnesium to control algae? And does it work? I do. I have heard of it for bryopsis, but I've never had bryopsis. I had a friend who lives here locally who said that he raised his magnesium to kill it, and it worked. I don't have any personal experience with that. see if I can scroll up here.
Hey man, I have another question for you. Real
Sure.
simple.
Yeah, go ahead.
Which test kits do you like to use the most? Since I'm getting pretty close to finally start to be able to do some corals in the future, so I want to know which test kits you use. I think you mentioned in a video.
Yeah,
or two, but-
yeah. I like to use Hanna Checker for my alkalinity. I use Red Sea for my calcium and magnesium. That's about it. And I use Red Sea for algae as well.
Okay.
I mean, because alkalinity, I mean, to be honest with you, alkalinity I feel is the most important water parameter. If you can keep that stable and consistent, you know, and as long as you're dosing equal parts of calcium and alkalinity every day, you should, you know, as long as you're doing that and you can only test alkalinity, you'll be fine.
Yeah, so I was trying to think of what I needed left to finally be able to start doing some corals, and I was thinking the dosing pump for sure, and then running the BRS 2-part on it.
Yeah. Well, do you have any SPS? Sorry, do you have any SPS in your tank?
No, this one's new. It has nothing right now. Remember, 0 par.
You won't need any dosing pumps or anything like that, probably for a couple months, depending on how quickly you move into, you know, hard corals. Basically, I mean, I will do a video on this. I've said this like 10 times. I got to make this damn video. Yeah. But basically, how do you know when it's time to start dosing? To kind of give a quick overview is basically you're going to track your alkalinity demands. So say you add 10 frags of SPS. We'll just say that for a number. And you go ahead and you test after your water change the day after, and say you're at 9.5 DKH. Now, what you're going to do is you usually don't do a water change probably every 2 weeks. So you're going to go ahead and, you know, test your water alkalinity right before you do your next water change. And then that will kind of tell you the dip. Or you can test it, you know, a few days later if you want. You don't have to wait till your next water change. But the point is you want to test your alkalinity to see kind of where the dip is coming from. So,
isn't that also driven off of your salinity, right? Your salinity,
say that again. I'm sorry.
The DKH and all that, the calcium, that's also driven off of the salinity of your water, correct?
Yeah, you're going to want to stay at a constant 1.025 or 1.026, or if you want to be technical, 1.0265. But yeah, I mean, you want to keep that consistency, but your calcium and alkalinity needs are going to be based off of what the demand of the tank is. So you want to make sure that you're monitoring your alkalinity for any kind of dips. So say you add in those 10 frags and you test your water 4 days later and it went from 9.5 to 9. Well, you dropped that 0.5% in those couple days, meaning that, you know, they're growing. Say after a couple weeks, they're starting to grow, and you're using up some alkalinity. Now that doesn't mean right there that you need to necessarily start dosing, but maybe instead of doing a water change every 2 weeks, maybe just do it every week. A smaller percentage to kind of help replenish that calcium alkalinity. And then once you get to the point where kind of where I'm at now, basically you're getting swings, because alkalinity swings really kill SPS coral. That's really one of the main causes, on top of really bright light too quickly. But basically, if I wasn't to dose my if I don't dose my frag tank for 2 days, it would go from a 9.5 DKH straight down to 7 within 2 days, because right now I'm using about 100 milliliters a day of both calcium and alkalinity. And that's kind of, I've never let it do that, so I'm kind of guesstimating it would drop that much. But either way, it would be very bad for the corals. They would definitely be stressed. I don't know if they would die necessarily right there, but they would be, they'd be pretty stressed out.
What if you don't have SPS and you just have softies and LPS and all that?
Well, soft corals won't use up calcium or alkalinity to grow. LPS will, but not to the extent of SPS. So if say you have a couple hammer corals or torches or something like that, they're gonna you won't need a dose because of them, because they're not gonna grow fast enough to require anything that's outside your water changes.
Gotcha.
So you're definitely fine with just staying with basic biweekly or weekly water changes, 10 or 20%, up until the point where you just can't keep the alkalinity stable, and that's something you just have to test.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah,
I tested mine yesterday and just noticed that my salinity had dropped.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I also noticed that my alkalinity seems to be quite low as well. So I think I'm going to do a water change here in the next day or two and try to start bringing the salinity up. I don't have any SPS. Mine are all softies and LPS. So
My question is, why is your salinity going down? Are you adding too much auto top off water at one point?
no, I have an ATO.
Okay.
Actually, I'm looking back at my chart that I've been keeping on it, and it is slowly, now that I really look at it, it's slowly been trending downwards. So I'm at a 21 right now, or a 1.00021. I need to get back up.
Yeah. Just for future references, don't let it drop. Stay between the 1.025 or 1.026. You start getting down those lower numbers, you can you're going to start having some issues, especially when you start getting coral. So the way to keep that consistent is to keep up with the proper auto top off to make sure that your salinity stays stable. And then, of course, when you do water changes, make sure you match the salinity of the tank. Or in your case, because your salinity is lower, you might want to make a batch of salt that's a little bit higher to bring it up a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to do. I was going to mix it a little bit heavier this time around and do about a 10 or 20% and try to start. I didn't want to jump it immediately back to 26 or 25 range. I was going to, walk it back up a little bit at a time.
Yeah, just go slow with it. You'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, just keep consistent with your auto top up stuff. You should be good. Let me scroll up here. Thanks for the donations, John and Billy. Appreciate it. I'm scrolling up, guys, because I know you have questions. And let me see. Too much light stressful for fish? Yeah, I don't know how to say your name, but is too much light stressful for fish? I've never had that issue. I know that if it goes in the morning when the lights are first coming on, if you go from 0 to 100% on like maybe 4 metal high, hey, I can't even say the damn word right now. I'm having a tongue twister here. Just say you went from 0 to 100% immediately. It could be stressful for the fish, but I don't think it's not gonna kill them. It might just piss them off. How many fish do I recommend for a 125? Well, that's going to really depend on how many fish, Ron, that you're looking to add. I mean, or better yet, what type of fish you're looking to add. I mean, if you're going to add nothing but tangs, it's going to go into a next factor. What size are those tangs? So you kind of got to play, weigh out the differences between fish. But most 125 gallons, to give you guys an example, my 125 before I had up to, I think, 15 tangs in there, and it was pretty crowded, but they were regular, readily, I guess what, I think under 4 inches, so they weren't really big tangs. Now I wouldn't add 15 of those blue hippo tangs because that'd be a little overkill, but yeah. So hopefully that answers your question, kind of. Why do all nitrate testers suck? Well, I think it's because nitrates are difficult to test when you have algae in your tank because you kind of get a false reading. When you try to test for nitrates and phosphates and you can actually see algae growing in your tank, there's a good chance that algae is using up available nitrates and phosphates in the water column. So it kind of gives you a false number, which kind of makes you think that the test kit sucks. I personally, I don't test nitrates or phosphates. I just, if I see algae, I know I'm fucking up somewhere, period. Or there's something going on. Like I mentioned, the water barrel. If I see algae in my tank, I know that there's something that I'm adding to the tank via food, water, or maybe I'm not doing the maintenance that I should. That's causing the issue. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's my whole testing. Yes, Red Sea test kits for algae. Let's see. Let me go down here. Do I test for iodine? No, I do not. Let's see here. What do I think about the phosphate Hannah checker? Honestly, I have never used it, so I can't give you an opinion on that. I might be. Have you ever suck? I don't know. Care. I don't think that's a question, but okay. Let's see here. You know what really sucks is when you're trying to scroll up and the damn thing keeps scrolling down. What am I going to use for the 300 light wise? I don't know yet. Does any companies want to offer me some free lights that are awesome? Because I don't really have a plan. I'm going to go with Ecotech Radions. That's my plan, but I need the money for it. Right now, I just dropped another $800 worth of plumbing and parts for the 300-gallon build. I need another 800 just to get it running, and then another 3,600 for lighting. So, yeah. So you guys need to buy coral is basically what I'm getting at because I can't finish this damn build until you guys buy some more coral. Let's see here. I think that's it. I probably missed a whole bunch because the damn thing keeps scrolling. So yeah, guys, last call on this. If you have any questions, put it in the comment section below now. I'm not going to scroll up anymore because it keeps bringing me back down to the bottom, and I can't even read it before it does it. So, and we're going to be out of here in 10 minutes. Now, I will be posting on the Patreon site tonight once we get out of here, kind of asking for you guys' input on what you want to do regarding topics for next week's live chat. And basically, Patreons are the ones that are in the video that get the first dibs, as you guys have been here, to answer their questions. It's $2 a month if you want to be part of that, guys. And I'm not here asking for money. I mean, there's live streamers right now that charge $15 just to have a conversation, and that's not really what it's about. But as you guys can see, it's easier to get your questions answered if you can come into the video and take care of things that way. So I do appreciate all the support, 100%. As I mentioned earlier, I couldn't do without you guys. All right, so some questions are coming in. Let's see. No, not paragraphs, guys. Questions, like single line questions. Paragraphs are not something I want to do, but that's fine.
I got a question. What's the best way to hide the bills from your wife?
Let's see. In my house, I pay the bills. So, and I'm the fucking king of the house. So, no. No, I just. The hobby right now, it was a hobby, but it's become a business, as you guys know. And this is my livelihood. This is how I survive. It's how I feed my kids. So, between YouTube money and coral sales and bills and stuff like that. So you can't really complain about something that pays for you to have a place to live. So it's not really an issue.
I don't have that problem. My wife's bitching because I won't start my next build.
That's not a bad thing to have happen either.
I'm going to let you know that, I mean, just from seeing how much love and care you give on your tanks compared to some of my local fish stores, I'm definitely, once I start getting into the corals and stuff, I'm going to be picking up from you. I mean, just tell them how nice your tanks are. I mean, how much care you give everything. I mean, that's way above somebody who's 19 years old, who's working for $14 an hour at the local fish store, taking care of all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you have different things at stake, like I said, when you have a family that you have to take care of, sometimes you put your priorities have to be different than just a Joe Schmo trying to get through the day. So, if my tank crashes because I don't feel like doing a water change for 2 weeks, or, I just don't feel like doing maintenance or topping off my ATO, I can lose, $50,000 in coral and be screwed, not be able to pay my freaking rent or something. So yeah, it's all in perspective, but I do appreciate you, saying those things. Let's see here what we got. People scrolling. Have you thought mixed T5s and other LEDs than Radion? Well, there are some other LEDs that I like, but it's kind of, I discussed this with Billy earlier. It comes down to the type of build it is right now. I mean, we have a beautiful tank and stand that's just on a different level than anything I've ever had. Obviously, the sump. If you guys haven't seen that, go to the Facebook page, Fish of Hex. You guys will see the brand new sump. That's just on a whole nother level. I've been using tanks that are DIY for the last, few years.
That's a nice sump.
Yeah. So it's like, do I really want to throw shitbox LEDs over a tank that has $20,000 worth of goods in it? I mean, that just doesn't fit the theme. And that's kind of where I'm getting at. So, if Kessel or, Ecotech want to throw me some damn lights, I mean, I'll say good things about you all day. I promise. So we'll see. It's all about what happens. If I get the money, if I sell enough coral and I get enough money, I'll get some lights on it. But basically my plan is I'm going to do the aquascaping, get all the plumbing done, get the tank filling and, going, put my fish in there. And if I have to run without lights for a month or two until I get the money for them, it's kind of just how it is. I've been wanting a 300 for, I don't know, since I started the hobby. So it's kind of, if I have to wait a couple more months, it's not a big deal. But, yeah, guys, I think that's it. I don't see any more questions coming in. Yeah, I think that's it, guys. I'm going to cut it a little short. Anybody else in the video chat here have anything you want to say, or you have any more questions real quick?
I just got a quick question regarding the local fish store. So finding a new one, if I go in there, what are some common questions that you'd like to ask them if you went in there?
Well, if you plan on, every fish store is different. Some of these big chain stores like, Petco or maybe PestSmart, they won't let you look at their filtration. Maybe, I mean, I've never personally asked, but it's a good idea to see how their tanks are set up, because if it's all on one big system, then basically what's going to happen is you're going to go ahead and if they get ick on one fish, every fish has ick. I mean,
Yep.
you can assume it. If when it really tells you about the storage, check out the sand beds. Check out the quality of how the basically how dirty the sand bed is. Obviously, they clean the glass every time they start up the store. That's just the tank glass is always going to be cleaned. But filtration is always what I want to look at first, fish wise, and then the quality of the sand bed, how clean it is, and then obviously look at the fish. If you go in there, say you go in there once a week, every Wednesday for 3 weeks, and you see a fish with ick every Wednesday, then that's probably not a store you really want to go out of your way to buy fish from. But if it's the only place you have, then you need to take those extra steps on your side, quarantine wise, if you plan on purchasing from them. So,
what about online purchase? What place do you recommend?
I heard Live Aquaria is good. I'll be honest with you, I've never purchased fish online. It's something about fish, man. I don't like buying them online because I want to see the fish. I want to be like, yes, I want that fish.
Yep.
I know right now I get fish wholesale, so I don't necessarily get to see them, but I bought from this company so many times that I know the fish is going to be fine. Now, will it make it through quarantine? That's on me at that point, or the overall health of the fish. But when I just don't like the online stuff. And that's kind of where, when I started selling coral, people were like, well, I mean, if it's $15 for that frag, it must be a really, really small frag. And then, you don't really know what you're getting until you actually see it. So online fish is it's iffy, Hope that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I think the best thing to do is get them from your local shop and watch them, make sure they're eating, and then get them home and just quarantine them and preventative medicate them.
Well, it's not. I guess the eating thing isn't something that I ever ask because what if you're one of like 10 people to ask to see the fish, eat in one day, that's just not. They might not eat. Now copper band butterflies, those kind of fish, you want to see them eat, of course, because it is such a big investment, and if they're not eating, then they're not going to eat in your tank. That's just usually how it works out. Very, very slim chance that they'll eat in your tank, but yeah, so filtration, quality of fish, and how the tanks are taken care of is really what I look at. And then the personalities. When you walk into the store, they don't have to greet you and be like, "Hey, man, welcome to my store. It's fucking awesome." It doesn't have to be like that, but it can. If they have an attitude or they're smug or they think their shit doesn't stink, then that's probably not a place you want to go to because those people are fucking irritating.
Yeah, I've walked into a few and they haven't greeted me and said all that, but there's been a few times where I'm walking around, 10, 15 minutes and still no one's asking me, hey, what's up? Or what are you looking for? Or can I help you? That kind of stuff annoys me because you see me walking around now for a little bit. You think they'd want to engage and ask me if I need any help. So that's kind of one thing I look for myself. Might be petty, but.
No, it's not. I mean, that's a reasonable expectation. I mean, there's been a couple times I walked into a local fish store and I would see a certain customer support or whatever you want to call her, I guess an employee, and I would just leave the store because that's. I mean, I like buying stuff there, but it's just her personality was so bad that I was like, nope, not gonna stay here today. But yeah, I mean, if that bothers you, you could also. I'm the kind of person who's like, hey, I'm just standing here. You could help me, but that's I kind of that's just my personality, which isn't the greatest customer service personality to be having. But yeah, I think we're about 2 minutes out, guys. Yeah, that's about it for this live stream. I will be asking the Patreons what they want to talk about next week, and then if you guys want to be part of this, check out the links in some of my videos. I don't know if it's in this one, but check that out, and I will post basically a update of when the next video will be out. It should automatically tell you when the video is coming out, but we'll see. But yeah, that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I guess I'll see you guys next time then, huh? I appreciate it. All right, guys, later.